Hey, welcome everybody to the Soul Report Live. It's open mic night or open night mic. You might say we're trying to get this show on the road with your questions. You can ask in the chat. Feel free to do right now. And I want to thank everybody that's tuning into this show. We're a hit. There are more people joining our show every week, and I am so grateful. Welcome to this very special edition of the Soul Report Live. I'm your host, Douglas James Cottrell, and I'm joined as always with our co-producer, Jack Balick. And tonight we have a special, guest, Larry C., who's here to help us on the open mic show tonight. So welcome to the show, Larry. It is right. It is open mic night where you bring your questions, the curiosity, the spiritual reflections, and even the mysteries of your own life journey. We're here to open the door to deeper insight together. Maybe you've had a powerful dream lately. Maybe you're wondering about the state of the world. Maybe something in your heart just needs a little bit of light, or you just want to ask that hard question you can't seem to get an answer anywhere. Come and ask us. We'll have an answer for you, I guarantee it. If you're new to the show, welcome to the Global Village. Carry on. This is the Soul Report Live. We're carrying on from our previous broadcasts on radio. We're thrilled that you found your way here by divine guidance, no less, I believe. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and like this channel. And let's get ready to raise the soul frequency together. Okay, so take a breath, center yourself, and it's open mic night to the spirit of the moment. So welcome to the show, Larry. It's great that you're here. And how are you doing tonight? You're in California, and I'm on the other side of the world. So welcome to the show, and thanks for stepping in tonight.
Yes, I'm doing well, and I hope everyone else is doing great too. Thank you for having me. I'll do my best.
Okay, so tonight we have all kinds of questions lined up. We have people, I'm encouraging you to go in the chat and send your questions. Larry will ask them to you, and we'll start off with the show. It's we're all over the place tonight. There's so much going on in the world. It's unbelievable. I mean, this is a time of chaos. It's a time of uncertainty. It's a time of change. Just before the dawn, it's the darkest, as they say. But as we go through this time of uncertainty, many of us are looking for some spiritual direction. We're trying to figure it out. What's going on? The world seems to change every day at warp speed. From the Middle East, where now 145 nations are chiming in, declaring Palestine as a state, to just a few days ago, there was only just the UK and France and Canada and Australia. Everybody's jumping on board because of what's happening there. This is a tragedy in motion. It's a man made starvation that's trying to be combated by the goodwill of the good souls that are out there trying to save those people who are in need. Never mind the politics, never mind what's going on with the confrontation of the military and we just can't. We have to get by that. We have to go help those poor people. And by 145 nations signing up for statehood, I think we're on the right path. Let's cooperate. Prove me wrong, but let's cooperate. I think that's the way to go. So, Larry, what's the first question? What's up tonight?
Well, one of the things everyone's talking about is Trump's announcement about autism and Tylenol. What's going on right there?
Well, that's not just from his lips to our ears. Uh, Robert Kennedy Jr. has been touting that pipe dream for a while. Um, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person. I'm just like you and I, friends. I'm just an ordinary person, but I happen to be a grandfather. I've raised my kids, and I know a thing or two about children. And also in my business or my career as a counselor, we've talked about many things. And um, I want to know, where's the science? Like, where's the proof? How can it be that some fellows who are sitting in a room all of a sudden decide, ta-da, Tylenol is the cause for autism? It's not. I have a friend, his name Jonathan Alderson, who wrote a book. I'll give him a shout out. It's called Exploring the Myths of Autism. It's not caused by pills. It's not caused by diet. It is a brain malfunction. It's kind of like somebody having dyslexia. Where does that come from? Well, maybe that comes from aspirin. Waha, make a little, poke a little fun here. But the point being is that it's in the news. It's dangerous to put this out, and my opinion is The president is a very wise and powerful leader, and I don't think he should be taking this announcement, in my opinion, to the people without more solid evidence, because these are affecting little kids. This is affecting the lives of parents. It's a tragic thing to have autism as a child, but it's more tragic to be a parent of a child that had autism, because your heart bleeds every day. What can I do? I just take it my life and give it to my child. I desperately want to find something to help this child. Well, that book, Exploring the Myths of Autism, is an award-winning book, and if you have such a person in your family, a child or somebody that's in that situation, go read Jonathan's book. He has made giant steps forward in helping little children and families. I'm talking getting the child to communicate in that special way. They're wired up wrong in their head. I'm not trying to say what autism is. They're just wired up differently, in my opinion. And so, today everybody's looking. I mean, let's look at the Soul Report Live. What's the take on this? It's important. Everybody wants to know about this autism, call it here, scourge, difficulty. I don't want to use any other derogatory terms. We all get the meaning. So it's important. But realize there's consequences, my friends. And when the White House makes statements like this that are off the wall, I mean, I don't think the science came out. I didn't. I'm got my ear to the ground, as we all should. Every one of us should be skeptical when we hear news. We shouldn't just pass it on, tweet it on to the next person. Slow down and consider what's really going on here, because you might be passing on something that's a half truth or an untruth. So the question about what's going on here, it's important. I agree with the secretary that there should be some research, some cures sought, something to do with autism. But I don't think you can blame headache pills for the cause. It's something else, biological. Something else may have caused it. But so far, all the research, including that on vaccines and poor diet and the mother maybe going through menopause and all the other off-the-wall causes, they're not founded as, exactly that's the cause. But Jonathan Alderson, and I'm not trying to point the direction to him as the great Messiah, he has found a small way that parents can find a way to communicate with their child. Even to get the child to say, I have to go to the washroom, is a major accomplishment. And he has found such ways to get the children doing the potty training, to going to school, to learning how to communicate in their special way. That took years and years and years. So my answer to the question is, you can't say it's Tylenol. Cannot. That's not logical. And I'm not a doctor, and I don't know where Robert Kennedy Jr. is coming up with this stuff, but it doesn't make sense. And, he's like all over the page. I'm not trying to belittle him, but just to say from my observation, looking from the outside in, he ought not to be, what can we say, on some sort of hunt or journey to try to find the cure. It should be like, let's go talk to people who have had kids that have recovered and find out what was going on with them. Let's pay more attention to the kids who have autism now, rather than some theory or speculation that Tylenol is the thing. It's the cause. I don't believe it, because I don't believe there's any one cause. Intuitively, I don't believe there's any one cause for autism, as much as there is for children who are dyslexic, or children that have other brain dysfunctions, slow learners, people who have those nervous functions, ADHD or whatever that is. And it's a matter, like, you can't say this is it. The brain is such an amazing, I should say the mind is such an amazing thing. And the brain, with the nervous synapse and left and right hemispheres and corpus callosum and the bridge that goes across the center, what's inside your skull is really complicated. It's enormous. We do know that lack of vitamins, we know that children who can't assimilate well suffer, and they have conditions like mongoloidism. It's been proven, at least somewhere in my research, is that it was a lack of assimilation of vitamins, and giving children excess of vitamins, in other words, upping their assimilation ability, it changed their thinking, and they were, although they looked a little different, they were functioning 100% the same as ordinary children. So kids like this, everybody, if you don't know my history, my daughter Sherry had difficulties, and I'm, the parent of a child who had severe problems, and we discovered our way using the Edgar Casey Ross Peterson as the advisor to help us get Sherry out of an institution at home, and she lived until she was almost 40, where her life expectancy was 9 or 10 at the time. So I know what I'm talking about as a parent. I don't know what I'm talking about as a medical person, as an intuitive person or individual. I'm giving you my feelings or sense, but it's in the news right now. This is hot. Okay, so is Epstein. Okay, look out. There's a whole other story about kids, right? So, but look out. We want to say to the people here, what's the way to take this, my friends? Don't jump to conclusions. Don't have a strong opinion. Listen, be skeptical, and when you hear things like Tylenol is the problem, you can say, well, let's give it the time test. What's going to happen next week? And if it changes next week or the week after, then we know that's not sound science rather. But the real proof is in talking to parents who have children with autism and what they did to successfully manage the child, educate the child, promote the child, and have the child being functional, going out into the world themselves. What did they do right? That's what we should be looking at, other than theories and speculation, which, to answer your question directly, this is what it is today. I mean, the president ought not to have been out there proclaiming it because, that's just not a presidential duty, in my humble opinion. He should not put his stamp of approval on it because I think it's premature. Now, again, it's his administration and his people, and he certainly, by being the president, is a great achiever, and he knows a lot of things that I don't. I'm just a humble nobody. But the idea is that for us down here in the trenches, parents with children or parents who are afraid to have children because they don't want their children to have autism because it's been in the family or something like that, I want to talk to you. I want to help you. I want to tell you that if you're about to consider having a family, you should be praying for a special soul to come into the world through your family. I did that with my granddaughter, and she's a wonderful young lady, not just me, a proud, doting grandfather talking, but she's extra special because this is the time when extra special children, souls coming into the world, are coming into families. They're needed. I mean, back in the day, there was the crystal children, there's the indigo children. There was all these special children everybody was expecting to come in the world in the 70s and in the 80s and 90s. Well, now's the time. And if you look, you'll find that the children today, I don't know how to talk to them. I can't communicate with them because I'm so old. I'm only 2 generations away, and I can't talk to younger people because I don't know how they think. I don't know how they've been raised. I'm talking about internet stuff now and how social media and the world they live in. Well, when I grew up, there was the horse and buggy and there were automobiles, and we couldn't understand why people with horse and buggies, you know, that must have been terrible. Well, that's what we got going on now. My world's horse and buggies when we used dial phones and we used, we would talk to people on the phone. We never had the use of internet or chat or AI. But now that's the world of our children and our grandchildren. They live in this world behind me. They live in a universal world. And autism is just one step away because a lot of those autistic children are very bright. They just can't think or communicate more exactly with the way everybody else does. But with artificial intelligence, I'll bet you there'll be found a way that there'll be, get this, just popped in my head now, there is going to be an autistic language that AI will invent. Wouldn't that be wonderful? AI has a language invented for autistic children. Just popped in my head now. I'm making that prediction. Write it down, Larry. There you go.
That's amazing. I mean, while while Trump is making this announcement, I can see that some people are going to believe in it and talk about it and spread that information. Yet what you're saying is very sound. It's very reasonable. It's good insight.
Well, people are going to believe the president because he is the president. And President Trump, for the people that like or dislike him, whatever side of the aisle you're on, whether you approve him or disapprove, the point is he's there.
Yeah.
God allows all the leaders in the world to be in the world. And at this point in time, all the leaders in the world are working with each other. And it's a very convoluted level of spirituality that they have to work with each other. Putin, Ying, Un, you know, the UK, different people, Netanyahu, they're all working at the same level. They'll change. They won't be there. They'll be there for a little while and gone. And when they're gone, it's gone forever. But right now, these are the people that are in the leadership roles. And they ought to be careful because they're playing with their immortal soul. And the way they work, because they've assumed the responsibility of leadership, is that they're going to suffer great karma, good or bad. Remember, karma isn't really good or bad, it's consequences. But we need to say it's going to be helpful, it's going to be unhelpful, it's going to be good, it's going to be bad. So, which is a poor way of discussing the extremely complicated understanding of karma. So, these people are at the top. They have privilege, they have wealth, they have power. Okay, that's what they're putting out. Guess what comes back? The results or consequences of that. So the people that are listening to the president and just accepting it carte blanche, I say to them, be careful. The president is not correct all the time. He's not a doctor. He's not a lot of things, but he is a leader in an elected position. For whatever time he's there, it's his call, right? So, but he's playing with the outcome of his soul, as are all the other leaders and how they work in the world. I mean, think about it, Larry. Okay, I want to be the leader of a country. And there's a little vanity going on there, right?
Yes.
You got to say, who do you think you are that you could be the leader, the king, or the dictator, or the president, or the prime minister? A lot more prime ministers in the world than we know, but there are kings and royal families in the world throughout. We don't really pay a lot of attention to them, but the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of London, England, there's a lot of royalty, the King and Queen of Spain. We don't pay attention to them, but the kings and the queens are born into the family, and others ascend to power or whatever. And so there's kind of this, like I'm kind of trying not to rationalize it, but there's kind of like this dichotomy here. But the point is that who would, run for elected office? Larry, you want to be president? Okay, let's get going. Get some people out there, let's fire up the troops, get the vote, go through the steps. You could be president. You were born in the USA, you could be president. But I know a lot of people go like, oh, I don't want anything to do with politics. Oh my God, So I understand that side of it too. But there are people that say, I think I could be president. Okay. Where does that come from? Were you given, like a royal jelly out of the beehive that makes the queen bee from the worker bee? Were you given royal jelly that all of a sudden you think you could be the leader of a country? I don't know. But that's for the Soul Report Live. Remember, my friends, it's up to you to ascertain what's coming at you. Be your own person. And so when the White House or other officials are saying things, you have to be skeptical. Don't get angry. That's number one. For the Soul Report, the tip is don't get angry because that blinds you. You have an opinion, and then you have a strong opinion, which is very hard to back away from. And remember, as Winston Churchill said, those that are afraid to change don't change anything. And so when you're wrong, okay, I'm wrong. I don't understand that. But try not to dig your heels in when somebody says, you were talking about this, and chocolate, we're talking about dark chocolate, fatty, and now it's turned out to be something that you can eat that's going to have, that stem cell research stuff. It's going to create stem cells. What? Dark chocolate does that? They've been telling me I shouldn't eat chocolate because I might gain a pound or two. This is how it goes, right? Everybody knows this if you think about it. You're told one thing, a few years later, it's wrong, and a few years later, oh, it's right, and that so. As somebody who's on a spiritual path, Larry, and everyone out there, be have be discerning, learn how to discriminate, and learn how to be patient. Don't be quick to come to conclusions, and you'll gain in wisdom. Hey, we're going to take a short break in a few minutes. We'll be right back with the section two. It's great to have you chiming in, my friends. Send us a chat. If you disagree with me or agree with me or you have a question, let us know right now. Go to the chat and chime in. And thank you very much for allowing us to be part of your evening tonight. We'll be right back after the short break.
Are you searching for clarity, guidance, and peace of mind? For nearly 50 years, Douglas James Cottrell has used his intuitive abilities to help people from all walks of life overcome challenges and make informed choices. During his clairvoyant consultations, Douglas helps you uncover the root causes of life's challenges, whether in relationships, health, or finances. He offers insights into your future and practical guidance to empower your decisions today. Available by phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime, Douglas's consultations fit your schedule and lifestyle. Heal, evolve, be the person you were born to be. Book your clairvoyant consultation today with Dr. Douglas James Cottrell.
Hey, welcome back to the show. We have these mugs available. This is something you guys can check in and ask if you'd like one of these, the Soul Report Live. It's our guest mug, and we'll see if we can get one to you, Larry. So any questions from the chat? Do we have any burning questions that you can see there?
Yes, we do have one in relation to what recently happened with Charlie Kirk. In terms of freedom of speech, what's going on? It's almost like people are afraid now to speak up because they fear political assassination. So what are your thoughts about that, Douglas?
Well, one event does not the world make. Okay, so everybody, up until before Charlie was executed or assassinated, better, there were, there were the typical back and forth between the two sides. The red and the blue. And he stood, although he was very controversial, he had strong opinions, but God bless him, he said, let's talk. He wanted to negotiate. He wanted to listen to people, or so we are told. And he seemed to be that kind of a man. So you can't be afraid to be silenced. I mean, this is the whole idea that part of losing your freedom is losing the number one gift that your country has given you, my friends, is the freedom of speech. Now, in other countries, freedom of speech is not as free as America. In America, you can say anything about anyone, anytime, good, bad, or ugly. In other countries where there's freedom of speech, you cannot be derogatory. You cannot insult people. You cannot call them names. You cannot libel or slander their name or belittle them. You can't, because it's against the laws. But in America, carte blanche, you have the freedom of speech. Okay, with that freedom comes huge responsibility. Again, being careful not to ruin somebody's life, not to bully them. Children, people at work, or political opponents. They should not be bullied. But again, that's a responsibility of freedom of speech. So a lot of people are afraid. It'll fade, it'll go away, because the freedom of speech in America is the number one quality to keep the democracy going the way it has. And it'll never be silenced, because How many Americans are out there today? 400 million. They're not going to shut up. They're not going to change their mind. 200 million are going to say yes, and 200 million are going to say no. And maybe some people in the middle, like the independents, are going to gain some prominence and they're going to watch out, become a third party. I predicted this once before. I actually sent a text off to Mr. Sanders and I said, hey, President Sanders, watch out, independents coming up the middle. Because people are basically good. They know, they're smart. The bread and butter earners are the ones that are practical. The ones that are intellectually trained have a tendency to be lofty, and you can sell them a bill of goods because they're academics. And I'm not trying to belittle them, I'm just saying they believe in the philosophy. But the people that really run the country are the lunch bucket people. Like, no, that's I want my paycheck. I got to buy my groceries. I got to pay the rent. I got to pay the car payment. These are the people that are practical, and those are the people we need to listen to. Farmers are in trouble right now, and they're not being heard. Willie Nelson had this farm aid on the weekend. God bless him. All the superstars came out to help the farmers. 40 years ago, he did the same. Where's the government? Where's the help? How come they can't sell their soybeans? And the thing about this, my friends, if you lose a market and the customer, like China or wherever, goes elsewhere, they don't come back. They don't come back and buy the soybeans next year because they stay wherever they bought the beans or the commodity, the pork or the cattle. They stay where they are. So losing markets is very important. These are the people that need to speak up. And when they speak up, listen to them because they produce food. Okay? You don't think farmers are important? Well, when you go remember during COVID, you went there to the shelves and they were empty. That could happen again if the farmers in America are not listened to, aided, or helped. But thank God to the spirit of the Willie Nelson and other people. See, people are basically good. The Soul Report is here to amplify the goodness of people, get us together and say, by prayer, by thought, by coming together, seeking the constructive way, we can give hope to each other and to the world. And so when people are afraid to speak up, what does the Bible say? What does the Quran say? What does the Gita say? What do the other world religions have to say in their holy books? Speak up. Stand up to the strong when they're in the wrong. Intelligently. Passive resistance. Mahatma Gandhi chased the British out of India with a handful of salt and non-violent protest. He took down the British Empire, and out they left from India, and they got the country back. Because he said, I don't know how many millions of people were in India, but let's say how can 100 million people be controlled by 40,000 British troops? Makes sense to me. But the infighting, the lack of willpower, the lack of resolve, and the way he wanted it, which was nonviolent. Nonviolent always wins. Might does not make right. And so when people are saying things, have a dialogue, like Charlie Kirk said. You don't like me? Fine, but let's talk. He wasn't one to say, like some of the other people in politics, about shoot this person in the leg, get rid of that, imprison this, go after our political opponents, throw them in jail. He didn't say any of that. God bless him. He said nonviolence, the same as Mahatma Gandhi, the same as other world leaders who have come into the world and changed the country for the better. Nonviolent, open dialogue. Let's talk. Let's have vigorous, conversation. But let's try to find the bread and butter approach. What's going to be good for people, not what they think is good for the people. What is good for the people, and let the people tell us. So don't be afraid. And what happened to him was one foolish young man at 22 years of age gave up his life because he thought that he was doing something to silence some, I'm going to say, issue that he thought was somewhat bigger and stronger than he was, or his opinion. Somebody else's beliefs and values were better or not as good as his, I'm going to say. And that man, whether he gets the death penalty or not, is going to pay the price for the rest of his life. Now, I'm telling you, somebody who is at 22, I know there are a lot of people out there who are in their 20s, and they're going to maybe take a little offense when I say, you're still a child. You don't know what it's like to be adult. And psychologists will tell us you get to be adult, feeling, sensing, living in between 30 and 33, somewhere in there. Women faster than the men. After 28, you start to become an adult. But up until that, you're a child. And by that, I mean, you're not physically a child. I mean, you can make babies, you can drive cars, you can go to war. You can, when you're 18, put on a uniform, get a rifle, and go kill people. But when you're older, you go like, wait a minute. That's not going to solve anything. What's going on here? But the younger you are, the easier you are to be brainwashed. Back in the day, we would call this being brainwashed. Social media is radicalizing people. You hear that a lot. Was this young man radicalized? Was he brainwashed? Yes, he was, because he said what he said, and I'm not going to repeat it, but the point is that he thought that Charlie was somewhat so powerful and so persuasive that he had to be eliminated. What happened was Charlie Kirk is now a martyr, and he will be remembered for free speech forever. And so, whatever the circumstance was, what led up to that point, now what he stood for, Charlie Kirk, is going to be remembered. Doesn't matter what was said, that's going to be forgotten, but he will not, because he stood up for dialogue. And that's what everybody should stand up for. Now, again, lots of people don't agree with what I say. And I'm sorry you do that. But and I disagree with some people as well. But the idea is that they have just as much right, in my opinion, to be wrong, in their opinion, as I do. And a wise person who's on a spiritual path listens to the other side, because they might just have it right. They might know something that you don't know or I don't know. And so by listening, you go like, well, that makes sense. I don't have it all, because you see, the vanity is that you think you know it all. The vanity is that you think you're right. The vanity is that you don't give somebody else the same privileges or courtesy that you want yourself. That's called the golden rule, by the way. So the answer, and this is the point, is that Charlie Kirk will be a martyr. He'll be remembered by both sides of the aisle and across the nation as a man who was taken too early from his children and his wife. But his movement will carry on. It's kind of like somebody, I have a vision where somebody just took a match and they're holding it up to something. He's lit the match, and this movement is going to move forward. I hope the movement is free speech and listening to other people. Apparently, one of his supporters said that he read every email that was sent to him. He wanted to know what everybody was thinking. That is the sign of a leader. Even at 31, it's a sign of a wise man who is the leader of a movement trying to get the country to a perspective that he thought was the right way. Other people thought he was wrong, but the point was he was doing something about it. And he's been doing something since he was 19 years old. This man was on a mission. And because of the grandeur of what's happened, I'm going to tell you, he came, this was his karma, this was his mission. He was a great soul. Okay, now what he said, what he stood for, that's discounted. He could be wrong in a lot of things, but he did what he did because he had that in his heart. Unfortunately, people are afraid now, and this is the whole idea. Evil comes in the dark. Evil comes with, destructive tendencies. Why would somebody be taken away who was productive and doing something great for the country? Again, what their value was is different. When somebody who was basically a nobody, that person is now is responsible for harming that great soul, Charlie Kirk. What's going to happen to him? Well, regret. And that moment of satisfaction of taking somebody's life because he thought he was eliminating the call it the bad side, if you will, the other side, he's going to regret that for the rest of his life. I kind of think that the best would be for him to be incarcerated for the rest of his life rather than to be executed. But vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So we shouldn't hope for another death. We should hope for reconciliation. Charlie's widow came on and she was standing up on the stage, and God bless her. She's a very attractive, well-spoken, intelligent woman, and she forgave the assassin. Wow. That's what I like to see. That's about the soul report bringing forth that ability as a Christian person to forgive. You know, that's what it's all about. So as we let this story go forward, never mind the politics, never mind the values of left or right, you know, agreement or disagreement, because apparently Charlie said a lot of offensive things to a lot of people. That's part of America. That's part of the First Amendment. That's part of what we're doing here tonight, expressing ourselves. For some reason, satisfaction, you know, to get it out, whatever. No, to get some wisdom. How do we handle this? How do we learn how to cooperate? Because you see, that's the great lesson. This is the lesson of becoming a divine, spiritual, enlightened being, if you're in your own religious views, Christian or otherwise, is to illuminate the words of Christ, which is nonviolent, which is to listen to other people. Don't be distracted yourself. Don't be forced into, with mental reservations, agreeing with somebody. You'll be able to stand up and say, no, I just don't like that. I do not like chocolate ice cream. I like strawberry ice cream, and that's the way it ought to be. Everybody ought to have strawberry ice cream. And you go like, what's with him? Strawberry? Come on, we want vanilla, butterscotch. And that's why they have different flavors of ice cream, because everybody has a different flavor of life. Go ahead.
That was well said, Douglas. Something that came up into my mind. I had a conversation with my brother a few days after the assassination, and he watched a video interview of the final person in the audience that was asking a question. That person that witnessed the fatal shot, but he was a leftist. After that event, he just thought that it's crazy being on this side because I just saw someone do that to Charlie Kirk. And then he suddenly shifted and changed his views, realizing that his way wasn't good because his way led to what the shooter did.
No. I disagree with that. His way didn't lead to what the shooter did. The shooter did what he did because of what was in his mind. The idea wasn't that your relatives, friends were wrong. He just was awakened. You know, his eyes were opened up as to, you know, like that blindsided. This is the way it is. No, so well, wait a minute. It isn't. There's more, and that's what took to him. But it's not what he believed that led to the shooter. The shooter did this. He was a misguided soul who is unfortunately going to pay dearly for what he's done. So but getting back to your point, it's like, yeah, a lot of people are like, whoa, what happened? This is real. It gets real. This isn't just cheerleading and, you know, like we're right, you're wrong, blah, blah, boo, boo, wham, wham. No, this is like blood and guts time. This is, and that's how it always is, always. And so when you take a position and you go on TikTok, you go on Twitter, you go on someplace and you're throwing out a barb and you're crazy and whatever, that's thoughtless and that's dangerous. And believe it or not, anybody that does that, that comes back to you. It's out in the universe, you're throwing out barbs, insults, nastiness, just because it makes you feel better because you disagree with the person. The wisdom would be to say, well, okay, I understand your point, I still disagree with you, but let's go have a coffee. Talk about something else. That is the Christian spiritual way. But this, what you're describing, this is your point. All of a sudden, oh my God. And it made that person internalize and look and
You
see
got
a
it.
bigger truth. And that's what
Yes,
this was all about, seeing the bigger truth.
that's right. And the last thing I'll say about that is I'm not sure if you've noticed or anyone else in the audience has noticed, but there's a trend going on YouTube, for example, where those who have been celebrating Charlie Kirk's death are suddenly being reported to their employers and losing their jobs. What do you think about that?
Well, again, celebrating somebody's death is foolish, but it's not worth losing your job about. And it's not worth somebody tattletaling on somebody else saying, they said, maybe they didn't. Maybe they were commenting like Jimmy Kimmel was about what happened, and all of a sudden he's called up on the carpet, and immediately within hours, his show was canceled because of what somebody thought he said. He was not celebrating that about Charlie's death. He was saying, as I understand it now, that he was saying that it's terrible that this thing happened, and the people on one side of the aisle are now doing everything they can to disassociate with themselves that he's not one of them. Apparently, the assassin comes from a conservative family. Apparently, his father was a policeman. Apparently, he might have been a Republican. I'd say might have, I don't know. But so what? Why try to say somebody else is to blame, like they did with Kimmel? Except they're trying to blame him because of what they think he said. And then, of course, he's getting his show back, which I said something on Sunday at the service that he's, don't worry, he's going to be okay. You'll be back. And here he is coming back tomorrow because the people, the people got out there and said, this is wrong. This is a First Amendment right that he can say anything he wants. And, we can say anything we want to anybody. And that's, if it's right for Jimmy Kimmel to say whatever, okay, he shouldn't be punished and taken off the air because he's a superstar, and he has political enemies, as we know. But so what? He's expressing his First Amendment rights. So are the people that are allegedly celebrating. I don't really think anybody celebrates murder. I really don't. But maybe they were in their own feeling of emotions that, they didn't like what Charlie had to say. And maybe that's what they were talking about. I don't think they were actually sitting down, down at the pub having a beer or saying, "Yeah, thank goodness he's gone." I don't think that happened. But the idea is that they're being fired or losing their livelihood. Maybe they're going to lose their house. Maybe they're going to have divorces. Maybe their kids aren't going to be able to go to school. That's the end result of reporting somebody that you think is wrong. It would be better, spiritually speaking, to go over and say, "Listen, brother or sister, I'm a little offended at what you said. How did you mean that? What did you really mean by saying that?" So this assassination by verbiage should be given what its value. Like, boy, are you silly? You're going to regret that someday, etc. So the point is that yes, people are losing their jobs and people are being punished to the extreme by who? Their friends, their neighbors, their co-workers, their employers. Who gives them the right? Ever bearing in mind, the First Amendment says freedom of speech, period. It doesn't qualify it and say freedom of speech, provided I agree with it, provided it's polite, provided it's nice, okay? It doesn't say that. It says freedom of speech, period. And believe me, Larry, my friends out there, how many of us have really, really dumb friends that say really, really dumb things? Unbelievably stupid, dumb things. What do? Chop off their head? No, we go like, go have a beer. Take it easy. You're out of line, but, like, there is no such thing as, but the best being, again, spiritually mindful is to realize there are people out there who are not as bright as the rest of us. And there are people who are brighter than us. So, there's always somebody smarter than you, and there's always somebody not so smart as you. And so people that say stupid things ought to be corrected if it's correct, if it's right. In other words, like, that was a terrible thing to say. I know you're upset because sometimes people say bad things because they're emotionally charged and they don't say the right thing. They say the exact opposite thing. How many times have we seen that in life? How many times in life have we done that ourselves? So the point comes down to nobody should lose their job because they've said something inappropriate. Nobody. Give them time, and I guarantee they will, like you said, your relative, they came around to the other side. That's what's going to happen. But you get somebody fired, what are you doing? You're creating violence. The person is going to get angry. Maybe they're going to lose their house, and they're going to come after you, the person who tattletaled on them, because you think you're right. That person ought not to have celebrated a murder. Well, we all know that, that's true, but who are you to cause that person who is misguided, who's not so smart, who made a mistake, whatever, misspoke, who are you to take their livelihood away? So I'm on the side of God Almighty. I'm on the side of Charlie's widow. Forgive. If she can forgive that monster who's 22 years of age, assassinated her husband, then you, my friends, when somebody says something inappropriately, you just got to look them and say, well, you're going to regret that. Okay, whatever you say, no 2 cents worth. But if you retaliate and you try to hurt that person, the karma's coming back to you. Christ warned his disciples, you can look it up, he said, I'm going to send you out into the world to help people, but don't judge them. If you do, what you judge them is going to happen to you. In other words, you go out in the world and there's a fellow down there in a hole and you say, you silly person, what are you doing down there? I'm going to let you suffer because you're so stupid. You fell in a hole, and you walk away. The next day, you fall in a hole. And the same guy comes by because somebody pulled him out later, and he looks at you and he said, were you the guy that left me in the hole yesterday? Well, now you know what it's like. And he walks by, and then he falls in another hole. And until somebody says, hey, brother, you know, what happened here? Give me a hand. Pull you out. That's being a good Christian. That's being a good spiritual person. That's being a good religious person. So the point of all that is that when you're attempting to get somebody fired, you're falling into the dark side. You're falling into evil. Evil means the absence of love. And you are just as bad when you do that as the person who committed the crime, even though it was much greater in the result. So catch yourself, my friends, and hang on to your spiritual self, because it's important that you don't fall into that misguided, unchristian, unloving point of thought or value. It's important that you keep your own integrity. And let me tell you, there are people all around you every day you walk through Costco or the mall. There are people who are not so swift, and there are people who are of all emotional backgrounds and faiths and beliefs. But you're there all by yourself in a crowd. Think about it. And that's how life is. You're here living your life amongst everybody else. So the answer to that one, again, is when somebody says something stupid, you don't go try to get them fired. You go like, listen, that's inappropriate. I'm sorry. I disagree with you. And that's it. What's for lunch? Like the person is expressing themselves in that moment. They've done something really dumb. Okay. Have you ever done something, my friends, that's really dumb? Have you ever regretted something you said or did or didn't do? I'll bet you have. We'll be right back after this short break with more of the Soul Report Live. We'll be right back.
Are you searching for clarity, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of the spiritual world around you? Meet Douglas James Cottrell, PhD, a visionary author and teacher who's helped countless people transform their lives. His books are a gateway to profound insights, offering guidance, inspiration, and the tools you need to unlock your full potential. From unlocking your intuition to discovering spiritual truths, Douglas's books are your trusted companions on the path to personal growth. Don't wait. Start your journey today. Visit his website douglasjamescottrell.com to explore and purchase his life-changing work. Your next breakthrough is just a page away.
Welcome back, my friends. Hey, listen, if you're new to the show, we welcome you to the Soul Report Live. We're thrilled you found your way here. Be sure to subscribe to the show, follow, and like the channel. And let's get ready to help you find your inner way. This is a journey that's just beginning. So take a breath and comment on the show. Feel free to send your questions into the chat. The Wizard of Oz producing the show, Jack Balick, is here to help, and Larry is going to read your questions in the chat if you send them to us now. I hope you're enjoying the chat. We understand there's a lot of chatting going back and forth to you, my friends. It's my pleasure to be here to help you, to give you a perspective, an insight, or perhaps something to think about that might be a little different than normal. But we're here to help you find your way. This is what the Soul Report Live is all about. Larry, what do we got next?
Yes, we have one question from This Too Shall Pass. I know 2 lifelong Catholics who won't read parts of the Bible their official doctrine doesn't direct them to. Why would someone be afraid to learn more about the Bible if they already know other parts well?
Because the parts they don't want to read, they disagree with. Simple as that. And the parts that they're reading may contradict what they believe is the truth. So they're, what can I say? They're being unwise. And to read this is the whole thing about wisdom. You want to find out about your enemies, you find out by sending spies into their camp to find out what their strength is. You know your enemy well. That's wisdom if you're engaged in battle. If you're engaged in a debate or a court case or whatever, you need to know what the other side's all about. And by law, the other side has to give you what they know so that you can have a look at it and then have a strategy, or maybe learn how, not learn, but how to handle what their point is. You know, like how to counteract what they're saying. You know what I mean? Like they give you what there's on their side, and you get to look at it and see what the truth is, not imaginary what's going on. The thing about all spiritual books, and I've got in a little bit of trouble in this in the past for saying what I'm about to say, is that all of the books were not written by God. They were written by people. The people were inspired by their divine insights, by their spiritual knowledge, to put on paper what they received from the cosmos, the truth, the spiritual truths, the everlasting truths, because you see, truth doesn't change Monday to Friday. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the same throughout eternity. So the universal truths encompass all perspectives. So if you're looking at a coin and you're looking at the nice shiny top of the coin, the heads, and you don't want to look at the bottom, the tails, or the edge, you're only seeing one plane, one level of information. And so a spiritually wise person looks at other aspects than what they know so they can gain insight or understanding. You can still disagree with that. Right? I mean, in the Bible, there's a story about 3 snakes. One of those snakes ate the other 2 snakes. Everybody know what I'm talking about? I don't know, snakes in the Bible? What's that all about? We're talking about Moses when he confronted Pharaoh. And Pharaoh had 2 magicians who turned their staffs into snakes. In other words, they had metaphysical creative power that was man-made, because these 2 snakes were gobbled up by Moses' snake, a staff that was turned into a snake. Why was Moses' snakes more powerful than the other two? Because it was spiritually empowered. It was divine. And that's one of the levels of understanding that little phrase in the Bible, why Moses' snake gobbled up the other two snakes. Because the other two were the divinity of mankind manifesting through their metaphysical telekinetic ability, but Moses was spiritually endowed with the divine, and that's why his snake was more powerful. So when you read that in the Bible, when you're in Sunday school, you go like, snakes? You know, Moses threw down his snake and it gobbled up the other two, and you go like, wow, what's that all about? But as you grow older or wiser and you start to contemplate the spiritual essence or meanings of that, then you begin to see that we as people are divine. But when we're connected to the universe, we are empowered with divinity. We have divine power. And that's why Moses gave up being Pharaoh, went back and joined his people and Israelis that were enslaved, and became a leader of the enslaved mob of bricklayers and enslaved people. He was going to be Pharaoh, the most powerful person in the known world. Why did he do that? Ding, because he realized that he was going to be Pharaoh of men and have that ability, in a human sense, the highest possible political position, but the spiritual side, because he was metaphysically trained, because he was trained in high Egyptian spirituality, he touched God. And that's why he went back to help his people, to set them free, to get them out of slavery, take them across the isthmus into Syria when they escaped from Egypt, on and on and on. But he did so because he was divinely guided, inspired, or endowed. So that little story about two snakes has a lot, but I know people say, I don't want to read that stuff. Egyptian stuff. They forget. The first 4 books of the Bible make up the Jewish Bible, the Torah, and that the idea is that we're like combining the same. So I get other stories in the Bible where, people are going to war, people are peeing up against a brick wall, people are getting hit over the head with a jawbone, you go like, what's that all about? Well, it's a story of human nature and how those things affect us. So that's a long-winded way of saying if people are afraid to look at the entirety of the Bible, but they're willing to selectively cherry pick things, then, we're back to that smarter, not so smart kind of, thinking. And it's better to know both sides of the question, because maybe there's just something else that you need to look at that you don't know. And again, in understanding Scripture, it's interpretation. Okay, it's interpretation. But the words of the Christ are not to be interpreted. They're to be actively used in your life. But you need somebody like me, or somebody that has some experience of understanding spiritual books, to be able to give you the metaphysical, spiritual embellishment or greater truth or the greater opinion. Because you can look at something small like, okay, Jesus and the boys went out to the Mount of Olives. They had a few loaves of bread and half a dozen fish. And they fed the multitudes. Well, when I was in Sunday school, I went, how do you do that? I don't understand. How do you do that? Well, then you get to understand that there can be things that are materialized, right? Okay, what was Jesus Christ's first miracle, Larry? Not to put you on the spot, the answer is, his mommy said, we're at the wedding. We're running out of wine. Go do your thing. Make some more wine out of water. And his first response was, Mom, it's not my time. In other words, he knew he could do these things as his mother did, as his family did. He could turn things into different things. He had the ability of transmutation, if you will. But he didn't want to do it because he knew that he would be famous and people would be talking about him. He said, Mom, it's not my time. I'm not ready yet. And she said, go do it anyway. So like the good son, he went down the back room and abracadabra, my words, not his. He prayed, and water turned into the best wine of the evening. And the landlord came by and said to the guest the person having the wedding and said, "Listen, usually you wait till the people have a little, too much wine, and then you give them the bad stuff, right? You get rid of the junk. But you saved the good stuff to the last. What happened?" And that was the stuff, the wine that Jesus made. So when you start to look at this in that playful way I'm describing it, and I'm showing no disrespect here, I'm just giving you a different perspective, my friends, is that Christ turned water into wine. How he did it? Amazing. By divine means. The same way that Moses turned his staff into a snake that gobbled up the other two snakes that were turned into, his staffs turned into snake by men that weren't powerful. And so the fishes and the loaves story. Well, that's amazing. How did he do that? Well, again, by the same spiritual um, ability to co-create instantaneously. Okay? I've seen some of that happen in a Hindu temple where I saw Prabhuti created in a small little case over and over and over again, where the devotees were taking handfuls of the holy ash out and putting it on their skin, and it would close up, the priest would say a few words, and it would open again, and there would be more Prabhuti or holy ash. The same as Christ creating fishes and loaves, the same as creating wine out of water. So if you're a Christian, you got to look at those things and say, well, my God, how did he do that? The metaphysical aspects of the Christ show the demonstration of the spiritual gifts within. And if you're not wanting to read parts of the Bible, who are you to say that they're not wisdom or there's some application if you don't read them? The best case scenario is if you disagree with something, go read it and prove it wrong. Prove it to yourself that it's wrong. More than likely you won't do that because, oh my God, there's some truth in this somewhere. I did that with Eckankar. Somebody gave me the book about Eckankar and I said, that's baloney, that can't be. I read the book and try as I might, I sincerely, very earnestly tried to prove it wrong, and I couldn't because it had universal truths in the practice of Eckankar. For what people don't know about that, check it out. Anyway, long and the short of it is, what's next, Larry?
Yeah, we have another question from This Too Shall Pass. So a second question. Charlie Kirk's memorial has gotten global attention. Can it lead to a positive outcome like a revival?
A revival of what is the question, but already it has a positive outcome because it's gone around the world. Because that's what people want to see. They want to see love. They want to see togetherness. Yeah. This is not around the world taking sides. If that's the outcome, then they've got his whole life wrong. They're aspiring to his life, the testament to his life, which was to dialogue. Try to prove his views wrong. Come together, talk. And that's what people want to do now. And that's the essence in all the spiritual journeys and all the spiritual beings in the world that have come together. That's what they're doing. They're getting people to put down the weapons, talk, and then figure it out. And so, as you can see, Charlie Kirk was a great soul. Why? Because of what he accomplished, not only in life, but now he's bigger than life. Okay? And so whenever you see movements starting like this, you have to say whoever caused that movement or started that movement or was willing to pay the price, willing to sacrifice himself, put Christ up there, put Moses up there, put a lot of different disciples up there. They were all willing to stand up for what they believed, knowing that some of them were going to go to their death as Christ did and some of the disciples, and others who just were put to death for their spiritual beliefs. They would not recant. Okay, I'm not trying to say Charlie's up there. I'm trying to say that Charlie's movement is similar because of the consequences of what happened. So indeed, in this day and age of of global communication, like we're doing here on the Soul Report now, talking about this, is going around the world. And people who are listening to us are saying, you know, you got a point. Irrespective of this man's opinions, which may not be accurate, which may be half accurate, or maybe whatever, incomplete, I guess is the word I'm looking for. The point is that his mechanism, his machine, his message was to talk. Mahatma Gandhi, the same thing. Handful of salt, talk. And so as we go through this, to answer the questions, we go through this time, this movement of, it's going to, of course, it's going to become adulterated, and people will say things he didn't say, and people will give him credit for things he didn't do, and on it goes. But that's the nature of our spirituality, which is to talk, to try to find a way. And even, he started when he was 19. That tells me that he was spiritually motivated from within. And as he progressed, for whatever beliefs he had, those were his private beliefs, but his purpose was to get people to talk. And that spiritual message is the one that everybody's resonating with. So naturally, it's going around the world and will continue. But understand this, my friends, it's going to be like one of those stories, you sit in a circle and somebody says 3 words and you pass the message to the next person, the next person, next person, next person. And by the time it comes back, it's got absolutely nothing to do with the first 3 words, but the message was carried around. And so that's what we're going to see. Let's hope that the sacrifice that Charlie Kirk made will change the tone in the world. I pray to God Almighty that it would change the way people deal with each other, as we've talked about on the show tonight. Don't accuse people of celebrating his death. Go and talk to them. That was his message.
Thank you, Douglas. I do believe that's the last of our questions. So do you have any final words, any final gems of wisdoms that you'd like to share with all of us?
Well, we got 2 hours more in the show to go, Larry. What are you talking about?
Oh, no.
No, I think there's anybody in the chat. Well, now's your time to send in a question.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wait a second for somebody. Thank you very much, my friends, for participating in the show and sending in the chat. As we move forward in time, remember the weather is going to be more severe in different parts of the world. We're going to see more floodings and more tornadoes. I had a vision or a dream that around my neighborhood there was a tornado, so I'll let you know if that happens, but it will happen. I've seen it. As we move through this time of extremes, the price of gold is going up to $4,000 US. I've predicted that before. The price of food is going to go up, and is going up, and will continue. Be prepared by stocking up of food right now, and try to protect yourself. Get insurance on your property if you need it, if you're in one of those places where weather is going to strike. But remember, we're in a time of extremes. There is recession coming, and that means that there will be difficulties for people, and you can look up what recession means to you. Some people who are incomes, it won't bother them at all, but for the average person, number one, make the attempt, make the effort, Herculean effort as it might be, to get out of debt. Debt is the modern day slavery. It shackles you, it controls you, and it debilitates your life. So if you can, work 2 jobs, get out of debt, be clever, go into business, make a sideline of selling things. Remember, if you're selling something, you really are in business. If you're making stuff and giving it away, you're not. So try to be in business and make extra money. Try to do your best to get out of debt, and then make sure you don't continue in debt. A lot of teenagers are running around now with debit cards, and I should say credit cards, and they have like $50,000 to $75,000 in debt. On your cell phone, you might have subscriptions to different things that you don't know about, and you're paying $100, $200 a month on your subscriptions. I just found that out. I was paying 3 subscriptions on my cell phone to stuff for plants and something else. I go, how did that get there? So be mindful of your expenditures in this day and age where everything's electronic. Pay attention and be protecting yourself of intrusions on your finances. But again, never use your debit card online. Somebody I read that recently. Use your credit card, because if you use your debit card, they can go into your bank and take advantage of it. But if you use your credit card, it's more difficult and they can't do that. I was surprised to see that because I didn't want to carry credit card debt. Well, if you're disciplined to pay off the debt on the 20th of the month, then you can do it. But it's the same as debit, except that it's smaller when the little chunks of cash are going out of your bank account in smaller amounts. But if you can do that, that's one way of protecting yourself as far as somebody intruding on your bank account. Pay with a credit card and then pay the credit card off. And another thing that comes to my mind to protect yourself is to take these little spies that we have here called cell phones and turn them off every day. Turn them off completely, because when you do that, it resets the cell phone and makes it more difficult for people to continue to pry into your private affairs or banking on your cell phone. Anyway, so that just comes to my mind is how to protect yourself with the weather conditions coming up. And so as we head towards the show, let's take one more quick break. If Jack is there to give us another short break, we'll be right back after this. Maybe we will, and maybe we won't. Okay. So again, thanks to Les. And welcome back, my friends. And so as we head towards the close of the show, again, I want to thank you for arriving here. I believe, that you've been divinely guided to this place called the Soul Report Live. Okay, and I'm your Soul Reporter, along with my good friend Larry here tonight, who's joined the show, and our good friend Jack, who is the wizard behind the curtain helping to produce the show. So we'd like to encourage you always, my friends, to remember this is a spiritual journey you're on. This is a time of extremes. And as we go through this time, remember, this too shall pass. Attempt not to do any harm to anyone, but don't allow yourself to be pushed around or taken advantage. Don't run away. Stand up to the strong when they're in the wrong, and understand that you can become anything you want to become. Pray always, and as our good friend, I think it was Dr. Paul, who told us that there's affirmations and afformations, and his newest book was about afformations. So affirmation is just repeating something that you may not believe, but afformations is actually doing something. You're forming a plan. You're signing on the dotted line. How many times we've done that? Oh, I could have made a fortune. Well, yeah, but when it came time to sign, you chickened out. Okay. So this is what commitment's all about, whether it's in a financial venture, whether it's in a romantic nature, getting together with somebody maybe for the rest of your life, or joining into a business with somebody, or doing something where you have to make a commitment. It takes signing on the dotted line. It takes a commitment. And so part of that is choosing wisely, getting counsel from people to understand the parameters on the other side as well as your side. Remember the coin. And as such, you will make a good decision. But so what? Do something, anything. Don't sit still. Don't mope. Don't blame others. And say to yourself, okay, God Almighty, I want to have a new car. I want to have a new Mercedes-Benz. I want to have a black leather-seated Mercedes-Benz, and I want it to be a really good car that I can enjoy for the rest of my life. And I'd like to get it the sooner the better. Please make arrangements. Please send people with opportunities please let me have coincidence and chance to find this automobile because I really, really want it. Amen. And then when it shows up, don't chicken out. Somebody, hey, Doug, I just got this car. I got to get rid of it because I'm moving. What is it? Oh, it's a black Mercedes. How much? Oh my God, that much? No, I can't afford that. Wait a minute, that was my prayer. So when things show up, I'm being funny, but when things show up, grab them, take advantage. Those are the words of wisdom by my mentor, Reverend Alec Holmes, who said, when you pray, don't be surprised when your prayer gets answered, and when it comes, grab it, take it. It's yours. And if you do that, chances are you'll have an interesting life. Remember the wisdom of, at the end of your life, if you have no regrets, you have lived a miracle lifetime. You've done everything right. Chances are you're going to have regrets. So learning how to forgive yourself along the way is just as important as learning how to forgive others. But take advantage when opportunities come up. When you pray for something, God will send it through the most unusual ways and means. They will send people to help you. You'll be nudged. You'll have a feeling, or somebody will come right to your door. Usually that's happened to me. Would you like us to give you a quote on new aluminum windows? I was just thinking that 2 weeks ago, and I had a man come to the door yesterday. Oh no, I gotta fix the driveway. Wait a minute, wasn't I praying for windows? Good thing he left his calling card. Maybe I'll give him a call tomorrow. Remember, my friends, it's up to you. And it's always been up to you. And as we come to a close here, we would like you to subscribe to our show, ring the bell, or give us a like wherever you can, and pass our show information around to your friends. I'm your host, and this brings us to another close to the Soul Report show. Thank you to everyone who's joined us live and with send in the questions. We hope that you found this a sacred place with your energy and your questions. Tonight you reminded us of the spiritual journey we're all seeking and we're about to share. When one asks questions, all of us learn. When one speaks, the rest of us hear the echo of our own soul. So if something you've heard tonight resonates with you, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share the Soul Report Live with someone you really who is ready to awaken a little more today. And remember, you don't need to be on stage to speak your truth. Your inner voice is already connected to the source. Trust it, honor it, and follow where it leads. Until next time, stay aware, stay kind, and keep reaching for the soul within. On behalf of our producer, Jack Balick, our guest, Larry C., guest host, Larry C., and myself, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell, good night, God bless, and may you enjoy peace and prosperity always.
Thank you.